Hello and a very warm welcome to the British Accent Podcast. Are you learning English and want to sound more natural, more confident and a bit more British? You've come to the perfect place, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this exciting journey. Each week, we'll dive into fascinating topics, from everyday life and culture in the UK to tips on pronunciation, vocabulary, and common expressions. We'll break down everything in a clear, easy-to-understand way so you can improve your listening skills and start speaking with clarity. It's not just about learning words. It's about understanding the rhythm and music of the language. So, if you're ready to take your English to the next level, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I can't wait to get started with you. Cheers! Welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. Today, we're talking about something that many English learners struggle with: thinking in English instead of translating in your head. If you always translate from your first language, speaking can feel slow and stressful. So today, we want to help you understand why this happens and how you can slowly change the way your mind works when you speak.
This is a very common problem, and it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It usually happens because your brain is trying to stay safe. Translating feels comfortable, but it also keeps you stuck. When you translate every word, you focus more on grammar and less on meaning. So speaking becomes difficult, and you start to worrying about mistakes.
Many learners think they must translate because they don't know enough words, but thinking in English does not start with big vocabulary. It starts with simple language that your brain can understand quickly. Even short sentences like "I'm hungry," "It's cold today," or "I need to study" can train your mind to think directly in English without going back to your first language.
Another reason translation happens is habit. If you spent years learning English by reading and doing grammar exercises, your brain learned English as a school subject, not as a real language. But the moment you hear natural speech, your brain tries to translate because it doesn't know what else to do. Changing this habit takes time, but it is possible for everyone.
One helpful step is to describe your day in English, even silently in your mind. For example, when you wake up, think "I'm getting out of bed," instead of saying it in your language first. When you make breakfast, think "I'm cooking eggs." These small thoughts are powerful because they teach your brain to use English in real life, not only in a classroom.
Many learners also wait for the perfect sentence before speaking, and that creates pressure. Thinking in English is not about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking naturally. Children don't translate when they learn their first language. They learn through meaning, repetition, and real experience. You can learn English the same way, even as an adult.
Another thing to remember is that translation can make your speech sound unnatural. Some sentences that make sense in your language may not work the same way in English. When you think directly in English, your phrases become more natural and easier to understand. You stop searching for words, and speaking starts to feel more automatic.
Listening is also very important if you want to think in English. The more English you hear, the more familiar the language becomes in your mind. When your brain knows the sounds and rhythm of English, it doesn't need to translate. That's why listening every day, even for a short time, can make a big difference in how fast you think.
And remember, thinking in English is not something that happens in 1 week. It's a slow change, and it's normal to mix languages in your mind while you learn. The goal is not to stop translating completely from the first day. The goal is to reduce translation step by step until English starts to feel more natural and comfortable.
Many learners notice progress when they stop judging themselves. If you're always worrying about mistakes, your brain becomes tense and tries to translate more. But when you relax and focus on communication, thinking becomes easier. English is not about being perfect. It's about expressing your ideas and connecting with people.
So if you are listening right now and you still translate, don't feel discouraged. Every English learner starts there. What matters is that you are trying, and with small daily habits, your brain will slowly change the way it processes the language. Thinking in English is not a talent. It's a skill you build over time.
Another helpful idea is to use English for simple decisions during the day. For example, when you choose what to wear, think I'll wear the blue shirt. Or when you check the time, think it's almost 8. These quick thoughts are not about studying. They are about living in English, and they slowly train your mind to stop going back to your first language.
Some learners say they can think in English when they are alone, but they cannot do it when speaking with someone. This happens because real conversation feels fast, and your brain wants to translate to stay in control. One way to change this is by practicing short responses, like really or I understand. When your brain gets used to reacting quickly, speaking becomes easier.
Reading also helps, but it depends on how you read. If you translate every sentence, it doesn't help you think in English. Try reading easier texts and focus on understanding the main idea instead of every word. When you understand the meaning without translating, your brain learns to trust English more.
Another useful habit is shadowing. This means listening to a sentence and repeating it at the same time. You don't need to copy every sound perfectly. The goal is to get the rhythm of English into your mouth and mind. When you shadow regularly, your brain starts to remember phrases automatically and translation becomes slower.
Many people think they need to understand everything before they can think in English, but that is not true. Even native speakers don't understand every word they hear. They use context, tone, and common sense. If you can understand the message, that is enough. When you stop worrying about every detail, your brain can relax and think faster.
It also helps to change the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, I can't think in English, try saying, I'm learning to think in English. Your brain listens to the words you use. Positive language creates confidence, and confidence makes thinking easier. Even small changes in mindset can help you make progress.
Some learners feel frustrated because they translate without noticing. This is normal. Translation is an old habit, and old habits do not disappear quickly. The important thing is noticing when it happens and gently bringing your mind back to English. Over time, the moments of translation become shorter and less frequent.
You can also choose one daily activity where you only think in English, like taking a shower, walking to work, or washing dishes. Even 5 minutes a day can make a big difference. When your brain learns that English belongs in your real life, not only in study time, it becomes more natural to think in English.
Another thing that helps is using English with objects around you. When you pick up your phone, think I'm checking my messages. When you open the window, think I'm letting fresh air in. These small sentences connect language with action, and your brain learns faster when English is linked to real life.
Many learners also ask if thinking in English means thinking in full sentences. It doesn't have to. You can start with simple words or short ideas. For example, instead of translating I need to go to the supermarket after work, you can just think supermarket later. The goal is to think quickly, not perfectly.
It's useful to remember that translation takes time because your brain goes through 2 steps: first your language, then English. Thinking directly in English removes 1 step, so speaking becomes faster. At first it feels strange, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
Sometimes learners feel shy because they don't want to make mistakes. But mistakes are part of learning any language. When you accept mistakes as normal, your brain relaxes and thinking becomes smoother. Confidence is not something you get after you become perfect. It's something you build while you are still learning.
Using English for your feelings can also help. Instead of thinking I'm tired in your language, try thinking it in English. You can also use simple phrases like I feel relaxed or I'm worried about tomorrow. When English becomes part of your emotions, it starts to feel more natural inside your mind.
Another helpful tip is to watch or listen to content that matches your level. If the material is too difficult, your brain will translate more because it's trying to survive. But if the content is understandable, your brain can enjoy the message and learn without translating every word.
You can also create a small English environment at home. For example, change the language on your phone, label objects like door, mirror, or remote, or keep a notebook with useful phrases. These little changes remind your brain to stay in English during the day.
Some learners think they need more grammar before they can think in English, but thinking does not start with grammar rules. It starts with repeated phrases that your brain knows well. Phrases like I don't know, I'm not sure, or that sounds good can help you respond faster without translation.
And it's important to be patient with yourself. Thinking in English is a long process, and every learner moves at a different speed. What matters is consistency. When you use English a little every day, your brain slowly starts to choose English first without you forcing it.
Another idea is to think in English before you start speaking. For example, if someone asks you a question, take a short moment and build a simple answer in English in your mind. Even 1 second of preparation can help your brain stay in English instead of translating too quickly.
Many learners also try to translate because they want to sound smart or advanced, but simple English is powerful. Native speakers use short sentences all the time, like that's fine, I'll try, or I don't mind. When you use simple language, your brain can think faster and with less pressure.
Some people feel stuck because they only think in English when they study. You can change this by connecting English with relaxing activities. For example, think in English while you drink coffee or while you sit on the bus. When English becomes part of calm moments, it feels less like hard work.
It can also help to repeat useful phrases during the day. For example, what do I need? When you're planning something, or I'll do it later when you are busy. These phrases are common, and when they become automatic, you don't need to translate them anymore.
Another useful strategy is to stop searching for the perfect word. If you don't know a word, use another one. For example, instead of pharmacy, you can say the place to buy medicine. When you explain, instead of translating, you keep your mind active in English and communication stays clear.
Some learners also translate because they are thinking too fast. Slowing down your thoughts can actually help. When you speak a little slower, your brain has more time to think in English, and you make fewer mistakes. Speaking slowly is not a weakness. It shows control and clarity.
It's also helpful to listen to your own English without judging it. If you record your voice and listen later, you can notice which parts you translate and which parts feel natural. This is not about criticizing yourself. It's about understanding your habits and improving step by step.
And remember, thinking in English is not only about language, it's also about trust. When you trust that your brain can handle English, translation becomes less automatic. Confidence grows from practice, not from waiting. The more you try, the easier it becomes to stay in English during real communication.
Another helpful idea is to think in English when you plan your day. For example, you can say in your mind, I need to buy milk, or I have a meeting at 3. Planning in English is useful because it makes the language part of your normal routine instead of something separate.
Some learners also find it helpful to focus on common situations. For example, at the supermarket you can think, where is the rice? Or I need a basket. When you practice familiar moments, your brain learns faster because the language matches something real in your life.
It's also good to notice the phrases that native speakers repeat often. Expressions like I guess so, that's interesting, or I agree appear in many conversations. When these phrases become automatic, your brain does not need to translate before responding.
You can also practice by imagining short conversations in your mind. For example, imagine someone asks, "How was your day?" and think of different answers in English. This is a simple way to train your brain without a speaking partner.
Some learners feel tired because they try to think in English all day. It's completely fine to take breaks. Your brain needs time to rest, especially when building a new habit. What matters is coming back to English regularly, even after a short pause.
Another useful technique is to learn phrases in full chunks instead of single words. For example, instead of learning the word appointment, learn the phrase "I have an appointment tomorrow." When you remember language in groups, your brain can think and speak more smoothly.
You can also pay attention to English in your environment. If you see a sign, a product label, or a message online, try to understand it directly in English. Even small moments like these help your brain stay active without translating.
Many learners forget that thinking in English also depends on emotion. When you enjoy what you're doing, your brain learns more quickly. If you choose topics you like, music, travel, food, or hobbies, English becomes easier to think in because your mind is interested.
And remember, thinking in English is not about forcing yourself every second. It's about building a new habit slowly, with simple steps that fit into your daily life. When English becomes familiar and comfortable, your brain will start choosing it more often without translation.
Another strategy is to repeat the same ideas using different words. For example, if you think "I'm busy today," you can also think "I have a lot to do." This helps your brain learn flexibility in English instead of depending on translation from your language.
Some learners also find it useful to set a small goal for each week. One week, you can focus on thinking in English during breakfast. The next week, you can focus on your commute. When the goal is small and clear, your brain can build the habit more easily.
It's also helpful to notice when English appears in your thoughts naturally. Even if it happens only once a day, that is progress. Many learners focus only on the moments they translate, but they forget to celebrate the moments when English comes first.
You can also practice thinking in English with simple questions. For example, ask yourself, "What am I doing now?" or "How do I feel?" and answer in English. These questions are short and easy, but they train your mind to stay in the language.
Another idea is to listen to the same audio more than once. The first time, your brain is trying to understand. The second or third time, it relaxes, and the language becomes more familiar. When something feels familiar, translation becomes slower.
Some learners believe they need to translate to be correct, but correctness is not the goal at the beginning. The goal is to think smoothly. When your brain becomes comfortable in English, correctness improves naturally over time.
It can also help to use English when making simple choices. For example, when choosing a drink, think tea or water. Or when deciding what to watch, think one more episode. These short thoughts are part of real life, and real life is the best practice.
Another useful habit is to keep your sentences short when you think in English. Long sentences can make your mind panic and return to translation. Short sentences keep your thoughts clear and give your brain more confidence.
You can also notice how native speakers pause between ideas. They don't speak fast all the time. They take natural pauses. When you allow pauses in your thinking, you give your brain space to stay in English without rushing.
And over time, these small changes start to connect. Your thoughts become quicker, translation becomes slower, and English begins to feel like a language you live in, not only a language you study.
Another helpful habit is to think in English when you check your schedule. For example, you can say in your mind, "I work at 9 or lunch at 1. These short thoughts are simple, but they remind your brain that English is part of your daily life.
Some learners also like using questions to guide their thinking. You can ask yourself, "What do I need today?" or "Where am I going?" and answer in English. These small questions help your brain stay active without translating first.
It's also useful to notice how often you understand English without trying. Sometimes you hear a word or phrase and understand it immediately. This shows that your brain is already learning to think in English, even if you don't realize it.
You can also practice by describing things you see around you. For example, the sky is cloudy or the street is quiet today. You don't need long sentences. Simple descriptions help your mind connect English with real situations.
Another strategy is to think in English when you make plans for the future. For example, I will study tonight, or I want to travel next year. Thinking about future ideas in English teaches your brain to build sentences naturally.
Some learners worry that they don't have enough vocabulary, but you can still think in English with the words you already know. If you don't know a word, you can explain it. For example, instead of library, you can think a place with many books. This keeps your thinking in English.
It also helps to connect English with your interests. If you like cooking, think in English while you prepare food. If you enjoy music, think about the lyrics or the meaning in English. When the topic is interesting, your brain learns faster.
Another useful idea is to practice short reactions. For example, "That's nice, I understand," or "Not sure about that." These quick responses are common in conversation, and when they become automatic, speaking feels easier.
You can also listen to English while doing simple tasks, like cleaning or walking. Your brain hears the language without pressure, and this helps you get used to the sounds and rhythm of English.
And with time, these small habits start to build a new pattern. English becomes easier to think in, your mind feels less tired, and translation slowly begins to fade as your confidence grows.
Another helpful practice is to think in English when you remember something. For example, if you suddenly think about a friend, you can say in your mind, "I should message her," or "I haven't seen him lately." These small thoughts make English part of your natural memory.
Some learners also try thinking in English before they start a task. For example, before cooking, you can think, "I need a pan," or "I'm cutting vegetables." When your thoughts match your actions, your brain learns the language more deeply.
It's also useful to notice the words you hear again and again. When a word or phrase appears many times, your brain starts to remember it without translation. This is why repeated listening helps you think faster in English.
You can also practice thinking in English when you check the weather. For example, "It's raining," "It's very hot today," or "I need an umbrella." These are simple sentences, but they are common and easy to repeat.
Another idea is to describe your feelings in more detail. Instead of only thinking, "I'm tired," you can think, "I'm tired because I slept late," or "I need a break." Adding a little more information helps your brain build longer thoughts in English.
Some learners like using visual reminders. For example, you can put a small note on your desk that says, "Think in English." When you see it, you will remember to use English in your mind during the day.
You can also think in English when you react to something surprising. For example, if something good happens, think "That's great," or if something confusing happens, think "I don't understand." These reactions are short and natural.
Another helpful tip is to repeat one sentence several times during the day. For example, "I can do this," or "I'm improving." When your brain hears the same sentence often, it becomes automatic and easier to think in English.
It's also useful to focus on understanding ideas instead of single words. When you listen and think about the meaning, your brain starts to process English more quickly without translating every part.
And step by step, your thoughts begin to change. English becomes part of your daily thinking. Your sentences feel smoother, and your mind starts to choose English more naturally without forcing it.
Another helpful idea is to think in English when you make small decisions at home. For example, when you open the fridge, think, "What do I want?" Or when you sit down, think, "I need to rest." These short thoughts make English a natural part of your routine.
Some learners also practice by thinking in English before they start studying. For example, I will read for 10 minutes, or I want to finish one page. When you guide your study session in English, your brain stays in the language from the beginning.
It's also useful to describe your surroundings using simple details. For example, the room is warm or the light is bright. You don't need long descriptions. Short and clear ideas help your mind think in English without translating.
Another strategy is to use English when you check your messages or emails. Even if the message is not in English, you can think, "I'll reply later," or "I need to answer this." These reactions are quick and easy to repeat.
You can also try thinking in English during short moments of waiting, like standing in line or waiting for the bus. Instead of using your first language, you can think about simple things, such as "How long will it take?" or "I'm almost there."
Some learners find it helpful to think in English when they set reminders. For example, call my friend or buy bread after work. Using English for small tasks makes the language feel more practical and useful.
Another idea is to think in English when you hear background sounds. For example, the dog is barking or the traffic is loud. These thoughts are short, but they train your brain to react in English.
You can also use English to review your day. In the evening, think, "I woke up early," or "I finished my work." This helps your brain practice the past tense naturally without translating.
Some learners worry when they cannot think of the right word, but it's fine to keep the idea simple. For example, instead of "comfortable," you can think, "I feel good here." Clear thinking is more important than perfect vocabulary.
And little by little, these small moments add up. Your brain becomes more relaxed with English. Your thoughts become quicker, and translation slowly becomes something you do less and less.
Another useful habit is to think in English when you notice the time. For example, "It's almost 5," or "I'm late." These quick thoughts happen many times a day, so they are a great chance to practice without effort.
Some learners also try thinking in English when they change activities. For example, "I'm starting work now," or "I'm taking a break." When you connect English with transitions, your mind learns to stay in the language more often.
It can also help to prepare simple phrases for common situations. For example, "Can you repeat that?" or "I didn't hear you." When these phrases are ready in your mind, you don't need to translate during real conversations.
Another idea is to think in English when you see numbers. For example, 10 minutes left, or "that costs too much." Numbers are easy, and using them in English helps your brain stay active without pressure.
You can also practice by giving yourself small instructions in English. For example, "Focus," "Sit up straight," or "Don't forget." These short commands are simple and help your thinking become automatic.
Some learners worry that thinking in English feels slow, but slow thinking is normal at the beginning. When you continue practicing, your mind becomes faster, and English starts to feel more natural.
Another helpful strategy is to think in English when you hear music. You can focus on one sentence from the song and repeat it in your mind. Even if you don't understand everything, repeating one line helps your brain remember without translating.
You can also describe simple movements. For example, "I'm opening the door," or "I'm sitting down." Connecting language with movement helps your brain learn more deeply because it uses both thought and action.
Some learners like choosing a daily theme. For example, today you think in English about food, tomorrow about work. When you focus on one topic at a time, your vocabulary becomes stronger and easier to use.
And with steady practice, your thoughts slowly begin to change. English becomes a natural part of your day, your mind feels more confident, and translation starts to happen less often without you noticing.
Another helpful practice is to think in English when you choose what to wear. For example, I need a jacket, or it's warm today. These small decisions are easy and repeatable, so your brain can learn without stress.
Some learners also try thinking in English when they leave the house. For example, keys, phone, wallet, or I'm ready to go. These short phrases are simple, but they help your mind stay in English during everyday moments.
You can also think in English when you look at people around you. For example, he looks tired, or she is in a hurry. You don't need to say these sentences out loud. Just thinking them helps your brain practice naturally.
Another idea is to use English when you check your goals. For example, I want to improve, or I'm getting better. Positive language helps your mind feel comfortable, and comfortable thinking leads to faster progress.
It's also helpful to notice when your brain tries to translate automatically. Instead of fighting it, you can pause and think of a simple English word. For example, if you want to translate a long idea, break it into something shorter like I understand, or I don't know yet.
Some learners practice by thinking in English during short walks. For example, the street is busy, or the air feels nice today. Walking helps your mind relax, and relaxed thinking makes English easier to use.
You can also use English when you imagine the next step of your day. For example, I'll cook, or I need to clean the kitchen. When your brain thinks about the future in English, speaking becomes smoother.
Another helpful habit is to describe simple shapes and colors. For example, the cup is white, or the table is round. This is an easy way to practice without needing difficult vocabulary.
Some learners like to set a short time limit, such as 1 minute of thinking in English. Even 1 minute a day can make a difference, and over time, 1 minute becomes 2 or 3 without feeling difficult.
And slowly, these repeated moments train your brain. English becomes more familiar, thinking feels lighter, and you start to use the language without needing to translate first.
Another simple way to practice is to think in English when you read signs outside. For example, when you see stop or exit, try to understand it directly without translating. Your brain learns faster when the meaning is clear and quick.
Some learners also like to think in English when they prepare food. For example, I'm washing the rice, or I'm cutting the fruit. These actions are easy to describe, and repeating them helps your thinking become more automatic.
You can also practice by asking yourself small questions during the day. For example, what time is it? Or where am I going? These questions are short, but they keep your mind active in English.
Another helpful idea is to think in English when you hear someone speaking, even if you don't understand everything. You can focus on one sentence and repeat it in your mind. This builds confidence and helps you notice natural patterns.
Some learners like to imagine simple stories in English. For example, you can think, I'm at the airport, or I'm meeting a friend. The story does not need many details. Even short ideas help your brain think without translation.
You can also think in English when you check your phone. For example, I have a new message, or no notifications. These small reactions happen many times a day, so they are useful for building a habit.
Another strategy is to describe how your body feels. For example, I'm hungry, I'm cold, or I'm relaxed. These sentences are simple and help you connect English with your real experience.
Some learners also practice by thinking in English when they clean their room. For example, I'm moving the chair, or I'm opening the window. When your thoughts match your actions, English becomes easier to remember.
You can also repeat common phrases that native speakers use to respond. For example, no problem, sounds good, or I'm not sure. When these responses become automatic, conversations feel smoother.
And with regular practice, your brain begins to feel more comfortable. English becomes part of simple moments. Your thoughts become clearer, and translation slowly becomes something you need less and less.
Another great moment to think in English is when you make decisions throughout the day. For example, you can say in your mind, I'll take the bus today, or I need to finish this task first. These small decisions happen naturally, so using English during them helps your brain switch more quickly.
You can also think in English when you plan your schedule. For example, I'll study at 8 p.m. or I need to call my friend tomorrow. Planning in English is useful because it connects the language with your future actions, not only with things happening right now.
Some learners like to think in English when they look at people around them, not in a judgmental way, but simply describing what they see. For example, she's reading a book, or they are waiting for the train. This helps you practice observing and forming sentences without pressure.
You can also think in English when you hear background sounds. For example, the rain is falling or the traffic is loud today. These simple sentences train your brain to describe what is happening, even when nothing special is going on.
Another helpful technique is to think in English when you notice your emotions. For example, I feel tired, I'm excited, or I'm a little stressed. When you identify feelings in English, you build emotional vocabulary and become more comfortable expressing yourself.
Some learners also practice by thinking in English when they wait at the bus stop, in a line, or before a meeting. You can describe what you will do next or repeat useful phrases in your mind. Waiting time becomes learning time without any extra effort.
You can also use English when you look at objects and think of just one simple word. For example, table, window, keys, wallet, even without making full sentences. This helps your brain connect English directly with what you see.
Another idea is to think in English when you react to small surprises. For example, oh, it's raining, or I forgot my umbrella. These natural reactions make English feel like a real part of your daily life, not just something you study.
And if you notice mistakes in your thinking, don't worry. You don't need to correct every sentence in your mind. The goal is not perfection, it's fluency, comfort, and confidence. Your brain learns through repetition, not pressure.
With time, thinking in English becomes easier and more natural. It starts with simple thoughts, and then slowly, you can express more complex ideas without translating, without stopping, and without feeling afraid.
Another useful moment to think in English is when you make predictions about what will happen next. For example, you can think, the bus will arrive soon, or I will finish this work in 10 minutes. Speaking about the future in your mind helps you become more flexible with grammar without feeling forced.
You can also practice by thinking in English when you notice changes around you. For example, the weather is getting colder, or the room is becoming brighter. These small observations are powerful because they train your brain to notice details and describe them naturally.
Some learners like to imagine short conversations in English. For example, you can think, excuse me, where is the station? And then imagine the answer. It's straight ahead. Even if the conversation is simple, this mental practice prepares you for real situations.
You can also think in English when you prepare to do something new. For example, I'm learning how to use this app, or I'm trying a different recipe today. When you think in English while doing new tasks, your brain creates stronger memories.
Another helpful practice is to think in English when you talk to yourself for motivation. For example, I can do this, or stay focused. These phrases are short, but they train your mind to respond in English, not just in your native language.
Some learners also think in English when they set small goals. For example, I will study for 10 minutes, or I will learn 3 new words today. When your goals are clear and simple, your brain feels more confident and less overwhelmed.
You can also think in English when you notice your habits. For example, I always drink water in the morning, or I usually check my phone before bed. These sentences help you practice frequency words naturally, without a textbook.
Another idea is to think in English when you react to good news. For example, "That's amazing," or "I'm happy for you." These positive expressions build emotional fluency and make your English sound more natural and friendly.
And if you ever feel stuck or blank, you can return to something very simple: one word, one sentence, one small thought. Fluency grows slowly, like a quiet muscle, and every tiny moment of practice helps you move closer to automatic thinking.
With consistent practice, your mind begins to trust the language more. English stops feeling like a subject you study and becomes a quiet companion in your day, a voice that supports you, guides you, and stays with you even in the smallest moments.
Another moment to think in English when you make choices. For example, I will wear the blue shirt, or I will take the bus today. These decisions happen quickly, and using English helps your brain react faster without translation.
You can also think in English when you plan your day. For example, "I need to buy groceries," or "I have a meeting this afternoon." Planning is a simple activity, and using English makes it easier to remember useful phrases.
Some learners like to think in English when they watch short videos. You can focus on one sentence and repeat it in your mind, such as, "That looks interesting," or "I want to try that." Even small moments of focus help your brain stay active.
You can also think in English when something surprises you. For example, "That was unexpected," or "I didn't know that." These reactions help you connect English with real emotions and natural responses.
Another useful practice is to think in English when you organize your space. For example, "I'm folding my clothes," or "I'm putting the books on the shelf." Connecting English with simple actions builds stronger memory.
Some learners think in English when they check the time or schedule. For example, "It's almost evening," or "The store closes soon." These short thoughts repeat often, which helps the language become automatic.
You can also think in English when you notice other people. For example, "She's talking on the phone," or "They are waiting at the bus stop." These observations are simple and help you practice sentences without stress.
Another idea is to think in English when you react to small problems. For example, "I forgot my keys," or "The internet is slow." These everyday situations help you express real thoughts without needing translation.
Some learners practice by thinking in English before they speak their native language. For example, before answering a question, you can think, "What do I want to say?" This habit makes your mind more flexible and ready for English.
And with time, thinking in English becomes easier. Your thoughts start to move more smoothly, sentences appear faster, and the language begins to stay with you naturally throughout the day.
Another useful moment to think in English is when you wait for something. For example, "The train is late," or "I'm waiting for my friend." Waiting gives you quiet time, and using English helps you stay connected to the language.
You can also think in English when you finish a task. For example, "I'm done," or "I finished my homework." These short phrases help you practice past and present without needing grammar rules.
Some learners like to think in English when they imagine simple plans for the evening. For example, "I will watch a movie," or "I will cook dinner." These ideas are easy, but they help your brain use English naturally.
You can also practice by thinking in English when you react to the weather. For example, "It's very sunny today," or "The air feels fresh." These observations help you describe your environment without translating.
Another strategy is to think in English when you hear music. You don't need to understand every word. You can choose one line and repeat it in your mind, such as, "I feel better now." It helps you remember natural rhythm.
Some learners think in English when they write short notes to themselves. For example, buy milk or call my friend. Even simple reminders help you create a small connection with the language.
You can also think in English when you check the news. For example, there is a new update, or that story is interesting. You don't need long sentences. One short thought is enough to keep your brain active.
Another helpful moment is when you notice your emotions. For example, I feel tired or I'm excited today. When you describe feelings in English, the language becomes more personal and easier to remember.
Some learners practice by thinking in English before they make small changes. For example, I will open the window, or I will turn off the light. These choices help your brain move smoothly between ideas.
And as you continue, English becomes a simple part of your thinking. You stop waiting for the translation to appear, and the words arrive more quickly, more calmly, and with more confidence in your everyday life.
Another moment to think in English is when you check your surroundings before leaving home. For example, I have my wallet, or I need my keys. These simple checks help you practice useful daily language.
You can also think in English when you prepare to travel, even for short trips. For example, I'm getting on the bus or I'm walking to the station. These sentences help you connect English with movement.
Some learners like to think in English when they choose what to eat. For example, I want something sweet, or I will make a sandwich. These small decisions happen often, so they are great for practice.
You can also think in English when you notice sounds around you. For example, the rain is falling or a car is passing by. These observations help you describe the world in simple ways.
Another helpful idea is to think in English when you check your progress. For example, I learned new words today, or I spoke longer than yesterday. These thoughts encourage you and keep you motivated.
Some learners think in English when they imagine giving directions. For example, turn left at the corner or go straight ahead. These phrases are common and help you feel ready for real conversations.
You can also practice by thinking in English when you notice the time of day. For example, it's early morning, or it's almost bedtime. These simple phrases help you build natural rhythm in your thoughts.
Another moment to think in English is when you remember something important. For example, I need to send a message or I must finish my work. These reminders help you use modal verbs in a natural way.
Some learners like to think in English when they read simple labels or instructions. For example, shake well or keep frozen. These short phrases help you understand English without translation.
And with steady practice, each small thought becomes easier. English starts to appear in your mind more naturally and your confidence grows quietly throughout the day.
Another useful moment to think in English is when you look in the mirror before leaving home. For example, my hair looks fine, or I need to change my shirt. These small thoughts help you practice everyday language.
You can also think in English when you check the items in your bag. For example, I have my phone or I need my charger. These sentences are short and easy to repeat.
Some learners like to think in English when they notice the temperature. For example, it's very warm today, or the air feels cold. These observations help you describe your environment quickly.
You can also think in English when you read short messages online. For example, she posted a photo or there is a new comment. These phrases appear often, so they are useful for building habits.
Another helpful practice is to think in English when you feel busy. For example, I have many things to do, or I will take a short break. These thoughts help you stay calm and use English naturally.
Some learners think in English when they imagine simple choices for the weekend. For example, I will visit my friend or I will stay at home. These ideas help you practice future forms without stress.
You can also think in English when you watch people in public places. For example, he's reading a book, or they are waiting in line. These observations help you practice continuous sentences.
Another moment to think in English is when you react to mistakes. For example, I forgot again, or I will try one more time. These phrases help you stay positive and confident.
Some learners like to think in English when they plan their free time. For example, I want to learn something new, or I will rest for a while. These thoughts support healthy routines.
And with regular practice, thinking in English becomes smoother. The language feels closer, your reactions become faster, and English slowly becomes a natural part of your daily life.
Another moment to think in English when you check the calendar. For example, today is Wednesday, or I have an appointment tomorrow. These simple sentences help you practice days and time without pressure.
You can also think in English when you prepare something to drink. For example, I'm making tea, or I want cold water. Connecting English with daily routines makes learning more natural.
Some learners like to think in English when they notice colors around them. For example, the sky is blue, or the wall is white. These short observations help you build vocabulary without studying.
You can also think in English when you hear announcements in public places. Even if you don't understand everything, you can think, they are giving information, or people are listening. This helps you stay calm and focused.
Another helpful practice is to think in English when you remember past events. For example, I met my friend yesterday, or I watched a movie last night. Using simple past tense helps you speak about real life.
Some learners think in English when they describe movement. For example, I'm walking slowly, or the bus is turning. These phrases help you notice actions in the moment.
You can also practice by thinking in English when you see numbers. For example, it's 5 o'clock, or the price is $10. These small thoughts build useful everyday language.
Another moment to think in English is when you want to express preferences. For example, I like quiet places, or I prefer warm weather. These sentences help you sound more natural and confident.
Some learners like to think in English when they imagine giving simple advice. For example, take your time, or be careful. These expressions are common and easy to remember.
And with each small habit, your mind becomes more comfortable. English slowly moves from something you study to something you live with, even in the quiet and simple moments of your day.
Another useful moment to think in English when you enter a new place. For example, this room is quiet, or there are many people here. These simple observations help you stay present in the language.
You can also think in English when you choose what to watch or listen to. For example, I want something funny, or I prefer a short video. These small decisions help you use English naturally.
Some learners like to think in English when they notice smells. For example, the coffee smells strong, or the air is fresh. Using your senses makes English more connected to real life.
You can also think in English when you move from one place to another. For example, I'm going upstairs, or I'm leaving the office now. These short thoughts help you practice basic actions.
Another helpful moment is when you think about your energy level. For example, I feel sleepy, or I have more energy now. These sentences are easy and useful in daily conversations.
Some learners think in English when they check their plans for the week. For example, I will meet my family on Sunday, or I have no plans on Friday. This helps you feel more comfortable with future tense.
You can also practice by thinking in English when you notice technology around you. For example, my battery is low, or the Wi-Fi is working. These phrases are modern and common.
Another moment to think in English is when you react to something interesting. For example, that looks nice, or I didn't expect that. These reactions help your English sound more natural.
Some learners like to think in English when they want to stay organized. For example, I will start now, or I need more time. These thoughts support both language and productivity.
And with continued practice, English becomes part of small choices, quiet moments, and simple routines, helping your mind stay connected to the language throughout the day.
Thinking in English doesn't need to be perfect or fast. Even small thoughts during simple moments can help you grow slowly and naturally every day.
Thank you for spending this time with us on the British Accent Podcast. Keep practicing these small habits, and your confidence will continue to grow.
Remember, progress comes from consistency, not speed. English becomes easier when you allow it to be part of your daily life.
We're glad you joined us today, and we'll be here again soon with more helpful ideas to support your English journey.
Automatic. Meaning, happening by itself without thinking. My English became more automatic after daily practice. Brushing your teeth is an automatic habit. Confidence. Meaning, the feeling of trusting yourself or your abilities. Speaking every day helped her build confidence. He answered the question with confidence. Routine. Meaning, a regular and repeated way of doing something. Thinking in English became part of my morning routine. Exercise is an important routine for health. Observe. Meaning, to watch or notice something carefully. Try to observe what people say in real situations. She likes to observe small details around her. Reaction. Meaning, a response to something that happens. His reaction to the news was very calm. Saying that was unexpected is a natural reaction. Prefer. Meaning, to like something more than another thing. I prefer short videos when I'm tired. She prefers warm weather to cold weather. Predict. Meaning, to say what you think will happen in the future. We can predict the bus will arrive soon. It's hard to predict the weather in spring. Progress. Meaning, improvement over time. Your progress becomes clear when you practice daily. He made slow but steady progress in English. Organized. Meaning, arranged in a clear and tidy way. Thinking in English helps her stay organized. His desk is always organized and clean. Instruction. Meaning, information about how to do something. Read the instruction before using the new app. The instruction on the label says, "Shake well."